This is Bumping Into, where we have interesting conversations with people from all walks of life.
My name's Dougie. I've stage 3 bowel cancer that has now spread to my lungs, and I believe that it was caused by glyphosate. ABC's Four Corners the other night in a documentary called Us Generation Cancer, but I'm more concerned for the generations to follow. Talking about glyphosate is a really delicate topic, and I'm putting my reputation on the line, but I really feel like I have an obligation to spread the word and educate people. There's a massive amount of research out there that is pretty scary. Glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup, and it is the next asbestos. The biggest difference is, though, that we are involuntarily exposed to it. So we have 21 amino acids within our body, which are the building blocks of a protein. 9 of them are essential, and then the rest of them our body can produce. One of those is glycine, and glyphosate will take the place of glycine. And the first thing it does is create a breakdown in the protein structure of the stomach lining. From there, glyphosate will infiltrate the body. It will expose the body to other toxins as well, creating leaky gut, chronic inflammation, and ultimately cancer. They've found glyphosate in the brain, testicles, liver, blood, and urine. The easiest thing to do with a topic like this, and we're all guilty of it as humans, is to turn a blind eye. But I simply can't, because I don't believe that my cancer was bad luck. Bowel cancer has risen by nearly 300% in 30 years, and this lines up perfectly with the dramatic increase in use of glyphosate in 1996. So I'm in agriculture myself, and I fully understand the convenience of this chemical. So I just wanted to let everybody know, and farmers in particular, that this is coming from a place of compassion because of what I've learned, and I'm just so seriously concerned for the children and for our future generations and the damage that this is causing to the human body.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Francis, and I know it's been a long time between episodes. So I'm back with a more serious take for the first episode in a long while. The person you heard at the start of the episode is Nick Dugmore. I came across Nick via Instagram, and I was immediately drawn to contact him. He seemed genuine in his approach and concern. He seemed highly intelligent in his understanding and research of the chemical, and I wanted to find out more about his experience. I've watched stories about glyphosate over the years, and the circumstantial evidence is quite alarming. It's almost as alarming as the exposure that we all have to it. There's no shortage of information around the chemical, its hazards, and the interesting history of corporate cover-ups. There's also no denying that it's changed farming forever. The cost of working without it is just too much for a lot of farmers to even contemplate. So we're in a tough spot. How do we support farmers? By returning to more traditional farming practices. The evidence is mounting against the product, but much like smoking and asbestos, these things can take 30 to 50 years to be widely accepted as dangerous. We also talk about the climbing cancer rates and statistics, especially here in Australia, where Australia is now among the highest cancer rates in the world. And it seems that no one wants to look in uncomfortable places to find out why. This conversation is also Nick's personal story. He reflects a lot on the personal changes that have occurred after being given a cancer diagnosis. I've left all of that in, because this podcast will mean different things to different people. But essentially, at its core, it's a conversation, and it's just designed to be a starting point for anyone interested in looking deeper into it. Here's my conversation with Nick. What I'd love to do is go a bit of the story of yourself, because that's obviously very important to where now what you're bringing awareness to and fighting for. Mm-hmm. So if we go to the beginning about yourself and your role, like what you do, how you got involved in farming, because South Australian based farmer?
Yeah, that's right. I live about an hour south of Adelaide.
and so
Okay.
and I'm a winemaker, and we've got a vineyard. Well, we had a vineyard on Kangaroo Island, but now we have one about 20 minutes south of McLaren Vale.
Right. Is it born into that trade?
No, no, my old man was in wool. He was a wool classer from a very young age, and then worked his way through that company for a long time. We moved back and forth from Sydney to Adelaide. And
Okay.
eventually, when I graduated, I traveled around for a year, went to America and all sorts of stuff, and then went back to went to uni and did wine marketing, and that was
Oh,
my introduction into the industry, and eventually into farming. But yeah, after I did the marketing degree, I wanted to get a bit of hands-on experience, and when I did some vintages, and then just got hooked on the making side of things. Eventually, went back to uni and studied winemaking and viticulture.
wow.
And yeah, so I've been in the wine industry for 20 something years now, 22 years.
Jeez. Now, obviously, being in the wine industry, no doubt this becomes the exposure to chemicals.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. In the winery as well, not so, you don't really think about it too much on that side of things. And then also actually in viticulture, it was just undivine management is the main thing, the main place where you use glyphosate.
Right.
But I didn't really think about it much then either. Or use of glyphosate around the home, it's just the done thing. I didn't overthink those sort of things at all. It's just something that has to be done. And it was a very convenient and easy way to do it.
So, I suppose since we're going back, because I'd be interested to know from a farmer, because obviously being non-farmer based, a lot of people are going to be wondering, well, what's the problem? What does it do that wasn't there 40, 50 years ago? Why is it so important, so convenient? So tell me the difference between a farm that does use pesticides versus a farm that doesn't. What's the mechanical difference?
Oh, the biggest difference is, and why it became so popular, is the saving, the financial saving on labor.
Right.
Because otherwise, if you're not getting rid of your weeds using herbicide, you're either there's a whole bunch of things to do, but a lot of it is manual labor pulling it out. But then if you've got 100 hectares of vines, I mean, it's just impossible to do that stuff. And then there's a lot of theories around undivine growth and what that might take away from the vine itself. But that's a lot of it is based on the taste of a wine or just the look of a vine as well. See if it's struggling or but a lot of people will put it down to what's growing underneath. But then there's also if your grass gets long enough and up above the canopy, it'll restrict airflow. And so you'll be more susceptible to diseases like powdery mildew and downy mildew, which can wipe out a crop. Or if you harvest it, it can make the wine taste quite funny, and you have to find it out.
Wow. Okay.
So it's a hassle under vine growth. But the brutal truth is we shouldn't really be growing grapes in Australia.
Oh, so it's a non-natural thing for us to be growing.
Yeah, it's an introduced species, yeah. But
Ah, okay.
yeah, but our industry wouldn't exist without that kind of monoculture. And there are so many beautiful things about the wine industry as well. And what wine can do for people. But um, yeah, the brutal truth is they shouldn't grow here in Australia. You have to spray them, you have to spray with copper or sulfur for both of those, the powdery mildew and downy mildew. You have to spray between 5 and 15 times in a season.
Wow. Geez.
Yeah.
So when
Which
you're spraying these vines, is it a case of, and I suppose even if it's for tomatoes or carrots or anything that because I know that there's the GMO modified seeds, which then made the plant or the fruit or whatever resistant to the chemicals. So it went from spraying the ground to just spraying everything, fly over the top and dump it and move on. The plant will survive, everything else will die. When you're spraying these things for the wine industry, is it a case of that you can spray the entire vine or you are just doing ground coverage?
With glyphosate, it's just ground coverage,
Okay.
and that will be in the middle of the year in the winter or slightly closer to spring, just so before the vine starts to take up from the soil what it needs for the growing season. Um, but with sulfur and copper, you spray that anytime. But both of those are classified organic. But for glyphosate, so it's not used on vines itself. Some vines are not genetically modified
Okay.
to resist glyphosate. That's a whole bunch of other crops that are more for food crops
Right.
rather than
Right.
for winemaking.
And is there any risk with the copper? Spraying things with copper and does that pose any, is anyone sort of saying, oh, maybe this could be,
Yeah, yeah, I haven't researched that extensive. I haven't researched that the way I have with glyphosate, but it can bioaccumulate, so it does build up in your system, and it's been related to protein development on your brain and related to Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
right.
But
Okay.
so many of these things, it's kind of crazy because, like, even where I went for radiotherapy, the place is called Genesis Care, I think. But they gave me a moisturizer that had um, two carcinogens in it. Because when you do radiotherapy, your skin can dry out, so they give you a little thing of moisturizer. And I looked at it and I said, "Oh, there's two carcinogens in your moisturizer, which is polyparaben and methylparaben." And the lady said to me, "Oh, it's such a small amount, it won't affect you." And I was thinking, well, I've already got cancer. I want to.
You're on the back foot. Yeah.
I'm on the back foot here, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and then if you look at our world today, and it's difficult for me because I'm a cancer patient. I'm trying not to freak out about everything, but the world seems to be slowly getting more and more toxic.
Yeah.
So, and if we're constantly, if you wake up and your moisturizer has carcinogens in it, and then you put sun cream on it later in the day, and then the foods that you eat, they've got glyphosate or whatever other chemicals or Fresh Start or Chem Fresh or whatever it's called that Coles and Woolies spray on all the fruit and veg to keep them fresh and looking the way that they look for a long time. There's just so many little things that, by themselves they would be absolutely fine, probably,
Yeah.
but they're all adding up. It's cancer for me. Like cancer is, I believe, is death by a thousand cuts, but
Yeah.
some cuts are far bigger than others. Glyphosate is a really big one, and then all those other little things, they just continuously add up.
It does seem like you're right. We're just compounding their toxic exposure due to convenience. And precautionary approach has gone out the window. Convenience is king. And if you've got the money or the resources, then it can just plow through, and it's got to become a big issue before there's a red flag raised. And Australia is a classic example. I mean, we've got one of the highest unknown toxic exposure rates of any country in the world.
Yeah. And I've realized also that it seems like it's human nature to reach a certain level of suffering before you change.
Yeah,
And also it seems like collectively that's happening now because, bowel cancer is up 296% in 30 years, and prostate cancer is more than that, and lung cancer is 200%, and autism and fatty liver disease and all these other diseases are slowly increasing. But if it's not you or if it's not an immediate family member, then I don't know, it seems like or even with immediate family members, it just doesn't hit as hard unless you're the victim of it.
yeah,
For
yeah.
me, cancer was my body sending me a message, to say, well, when I first got diagnosed, there was a massive amount of fear and anger as well. I went through all the different emotions, but after a while, I realized that yeah, I am the cancer. They're my cells, and it was a message from my body to tell me to change.
So, if you're willing to, what was the events that led up to you realizing you had it?
Yeah, we probably should have said that at the start. It was so on our vineyard on Kangaroo Island, we farm it organically, but it was 2 weeks before I went and because I live on the mainland and travel to Kangaroo Island and look after the vineyard. But I went over there for a pruning trip and I was camping out for 4 nights. And the whole farm around the vineyard, the sheep that were on that, they'd got foot rot. So you need to take the sheep off the property because that's a soil-borne disease. You need to take the sheep off the property for a year and you grow some kind of crop to sort of um, use that land for the year. You don't want to waste that amount of farmland for a whole year. So you grow a crop and then you'll grow some feed for the sheep for the following year for when they come back. But the guys who own the property, they'd sprayed the whole place with glyphosate to kill any weeds before they did a canola crop.
Ah, right.
And canola is a Roundup ready crop as well, but I don't think they were using it um, during harvest or during the growing season. But anyway, I was swagging on the ground and I broke out in a bit of a rash over my forehead. And then over the next day, it just covered my whole body. And I ended up having to head home. And on day four, I didn't sleep for 6 nights. And on day four, I had to head to the hospital because I was swelling up so much. The rash had moved all over my face. And so, but when so it was 16 months later, I got diagnosed with stage 3 bowel cancer. So I had a 5 centimeter tumor in my upper rectum, which had protruded through the bowel wall and had gone into 3 lymph nodes that they could see.
Jeez.
Um, yeah, but my bowel surgeon said to me he believes that my tumor is about 16 to 18 months in size. So I was looking back, thinking what happened at that time, and looking back through my phone at the photos, and then it was all the photos of the rash that I got. And so I was thinking, oh, the rash caused my cancer. But then I remembered the hot showers that I was having at the time. So I was having these scalding hot showers, about 8 or 10 hot showers a day, and I'd take the shower head off and run it all over my body. And it was the most incredible feeling I've ever had in my life. Like it was euphoric. I was addicted to this crazy feeling that was like coursing through my body as I had these hot showers. And so I was thinking, oh, well, I wonder what's going on with those hot showers. And so I started researching that, and it's a release of serotonin. And serotonin is your feel-good hormone, and 90% of it is stored in the mucosa in your gut lining. So from in your GI tract, sorry. So from your mouth to your bum,
Okay.
that's mainly where your serotonin is stored, 90%, and then 10% of it is in the brain.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then so I was thinking, oh, maybe it's a massive hit of serotonin, or afterwards a lack of serotonin. And then I started researching what makes up serotonin, and it's an essential amino acid called tryptophan. So we have 21 amino acids in our bodies, and 9 of them are essential, which means that our bodies can't produce them. So we need to source them from the food that we eat. And um, tryptophan is produced in leafy greens and turkey, and turkey's the only meat, and it's in beans and a bunch of different foods that I eat plenty of. But it's also produced by a thing called the shikimate pathway, which is, and that's when I found that out, um, that's what led me to glyphosate and researching glyphosate. Because the way that glyphosate works, when you spray it on a plant, it disrupts an enzymatic pathway called the shikimate pathway, and that plant will die. So at the time when the company that produces Roundup or glyphosate, at the time when that came out in the 1970s, they believed that we didn't have the shikimate pathway within us. And this is why glyphosate got so popular, because they believed that it was only in plants and not in
Ah,
humans
right.
and not in mammals. So it couldn't harm any animals, and it couldn't harm humans. this was the theory then, and they didn't have to do a toxicology report at the time because they didn't believe that we had the shikimate pathway. But since then, gut science has come so far, and we've realized that we are more bacteria and fungi than we are human. And of that bacteria and fungi, 54% of it use the shikimate pathway to operate. So we now know that it glyphosate kills whatever uses the shikimate pathway, and we have that pathway within us. But this is only, I suppose, this is only discovered. Well, you start learning about the corruption side of
Yeah.
things, and it's so incredibly disheartening for a cancer patient. It's just devastating. The first little bit of corruption I ever learnt about was I found out that US oncologists earn 30% of their wage through issuing out chemotherapy. And I was in my third round of intravenous chemotherapy and feeling horrible. And I found that out and I just about had a panic attack. And the first question I asked my oncologist when I saw her next was, is she making any money on the drugs that she's giving me? Because it just seems it's so corrupt and it's
Mm.
so, um, oh, what's the word?
Well, it's skewered in the favor of keeping you unwell. That's
Pretty
really,
much.
yeah, yeah. That's the way that whole industry is
Yeah.
built, isn't it? It's like you're rewarded if they're unwell, and as long as you keep them on something, you'll continue to be rewarded.
Mhm. And yeah, and when I found that out, I really struggled to believe it. I was like, well, who could be doing this?
Yeah,
Seems like a crime against humanity.
yep.
Um, but then when you start looking at the history of chemotherapy and radiotherapy, or just the history of the conventional medical world, and you understand why we practice the way that we practice, and it seems to me like we've got it all wrong, and we've got cancer wrong as well. But yeah, anyway, I went down the rabbit hole of the corruption of Bayer Monsanto, the producers of glyphosate, and they have known, it seems like they have known for a very long time that this does damage to the human body. But also, I mean, they sell $400 million worth of it in Australia alone,
Wow.
and it'd be billions worldwide. So they'd be so deep into it. And now there's this big, and part of the reason why I've put it out there is to raise awareness because it'd be the same as smoking. When they discovered cigarettes were causing lung cancer, it took 50 years and 7,000 peer-reviewed papers for them to finally say yes, for the government to say yes, smoking causes cancer. And so, what do you think the smoking companies are doing at the time? They'd just be sitting back, trying to avoid getting sued and keeping on selling cigarettes,
Yeah.
which is exactly what Bayer Monsanto is doing at the moment. They're paying off a lot of people to keep them out of court. There's still nearly 200,000 people suing them in America at the moment. They've
Oh,
already
wow.
lost 11 out of 16 or 17 cases where the people suing them claim that glyphosate caused their cancer, but they're still selling the product. So the discussion is between, I think, the public and the government, and Bayer Monsanto are just going to sit back until a decision is made, and they're just going to continue to sell their product and make their money.
What is really frustrating and hard is when you look at that, you've got two sides of science fighting. You've got one party saying there's a risk here. We acknowledge that there's a risk, and you've got another party saying no, there's nothing. There's nothing to see. The EPA says it's fine. There's nothing. You can bathe in it. Do whatever you want. And this other group that's equally as high ranking is saying no, we're declaring it a potential risk.
Mhm.
More research is needed. And it's like so. If you it's so frustrating because in a simpler world you take something to someone and it's broken or it's not and it's
Yeah.
it's it's clean cut. Your car needs fixing. This is the problem. Ask 10 mechanics. Well, you'll hopefully get 8 or 9 answers the same.
Mm.
But this world, as soon as you delve in anything like this, be it anything that is a probable cause of cancer or risk, it's the world's divided, and there's smear campaigns, and there's
Mm.
funding, and it's so hard. And a lot of people, unless they see it on the ABC or on Channel 7 in the morning, that just refuse to accept, believe, take notice until someone that historically, I guess, that traditional media comes out and says, okay, as of today, this is now X, Y, and Z. It
Mm.
just plows through unrecognized.
Yeah, that's right, until it goes mainstream.
Yeah.
But how long? I mean, cigarettes, 50 years.
Well, and I've got a few others for you too. So, and I've spoken about this with other people. So,
Yeah,
lead paint. And
right.
so it
Yeah.
was an Australian scientist that discovered that there was an issue with lead or lead in things, basically. Now, he
Yeah.
raised the alarm in 1901. In 1920, he took it to the League of Nations, which became the United Nations. And he said, this is an issue. This is a worldwide issue. It's a problem. Here's all the research. They said to him, your research is in stark contrast to industry funded research. So they dismissed him. So that was 1920. It took until 1970 before the removal programs begun. And, I'm sure that people were calling him a lunatic and a quack and a conspiracy theorist back for those 30, 40, 50 years when he was raising the alarm. And it took all that time. I mean, generations had come and gone by the time change came.
Mm.
And look at asbestos. I mean, it was known that the asbestos manufacturers knew that there was something up, knew that it was bad, but let's just keep making it until we can't.
Mm. Because they're making money.
And asbestos, much like chemicals, they're convenient.
Yeah.
It was fireproof, waterproof, it was strong, it was cheap, it was light. Let's
Mhm.
just keep using this,
Mhm.
and everyone was making money.
I do really feel for the farmers because, I mean, there's enough research out there now. There's so much, and there's so much um, correlation studies done as well. You know, wherever you're using the most glyphosate, that's where the most cancer is,
Yep.
pretty
Yep.
much.
In animals as well, even farm
Yeah.
animals. Yeah, dogs. It's a
Yeah.
disproportionately high cancer rate in farm dogs as opposed to city dogs.
Yeah. So there's a huge amount of research out there, but it'd be a massive, massive, like this divide, like you said before, this really divides the room. But because I think there is fear around change, and it would have to be a massive change. I
Yeah.
think it was Sri Lanka tried to go cold turkey on glyphosate in 2018. I should research this a little more. People would just have to look it up. But they really struggled to feed their people down there. So so they had to bring it back, and then they slowly phasing it out, and they have planned to phase it out by the end of 2020. It was 2024 or 2025. So I don't know how it's going, but um, that's really the way that it will need to happen because we can't go cold turkey. The farmers will struggle too much,
Yeah.
and um,
And
it's a
what's the
massive
option?
shift in mentality as well. Oh, the
Because
best the best solution, the solutions are frustratingly, well, at home for all of us, it's frustratingly simple. It's buy organic and grow a garden and weed by hand,
yeah,
or, you can do a vinegar, salt, and dish soap mix, which is not good for your soil, but at least it won't give you cancer.
right. Okay.
But in agriculture, it's really hard because you've got broad acre agriculture, which is really tough to control weeds. But I think we need to change the way that we look at weeds. And really, the biggest answer is regenerative agriculture because people have proven now that you can do that at scale. But also,
So
I
what
was
does that
listening
term
to
mean? So that's a term I've heard even people like Dave Asprey and talk about that. And what does that term mean?
regenerative agriculture.
Yeah.
It's all about building the soil, and it's all about creating life in the soil and diversity. Because when you don't have diversity, and same on the human level, you get cancer. People talk about your gut microbiome and good bacteria and bad bacteria. When that's human concept, I mean, well, it all is, but people are saying that there's not necessarily good and bad bacteria, but there's just more of one than the other.
Right.
And that's because you're probably doing more of something than the other in your life, which is monoculture. You know,
Right. Okay.
monoculture has only been around for 15,000 years. But as soon as you and but as soon as you like a vineyard, to grow one vine at home is easy, but to grow 10,000 vines together is really difficult because they don't have the biodiversity there. They don't have all the beneficial bugs and bacteria and fungi in the soil to deal with any pathogens as they arise.
Right. Okay. So if you basically have, I guess, a soil powerhouse that it can navigate its own problems itself, balancing
Mhm.
that, then in turn can allow you to better farm.
Exactly. It's exactly the same as your microbiome, your gut. You know, you are what you eat, but it doesn't stop there. I think it should be you are what you eat eats. Because what if we eat beef, you've got to think about what that beef is eating, and
Yeah.
that beef is eating the grass. Well, what is the grass eating? The grass is eating whatever's in the soil. And then what is that bacteria and fungi eating as well? It goes all the way back down the whole process. And if there's glyphosate there or if there's other chemicals there, it's going to travel through the whole system and into your body.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got to really start as far back as you can. Because I know there was one, I've followed this for a while. It's been something that's always worried me and I've been aware of how bad it is for many years, going back to I think 60 Minutes did a story on it, something to do with a macadamia farm and the runoff that was occurring and how all the people that lived in the valley, their pets were getting cancers.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's the Four Corners ABC story that was done, and there's been a couple in America. So it's something that I've watched for years and always been cautious and worried about, I suppose you could say. And I remember there was one documentary, and the lady was a lady farmer, and she said she was very pro. You know, we need it. We can't live without it. And she said, and frankly, the alternatives are far more dangerous than what this is. So, you know, her view was that this is the best, and anything else, chemical wise, is extremely worse. And in my mind, it stuck with me because you've often heard people talk about the BPA plastics and how, like, well, yep, we can ban BPA, but there isn't a fuss and a hoo-ha about the other types, which potentially are worse. Is that something that you could see happening? Is that like, yeah, we're going to bump one off the market, but then one that doesn't have all the hype around it can swoop in, take its place, and could be worse?
Yeah, for sure. Or Bayer Monsanto at the moment are coming out with a new product that they're hoping to release in Australia in 2028. And but I don't know what's in it. It'd be something, it's, does the job that glyphosate does. But I think what they're trying to do, what they will be trying to do is disassociate from the name glyphosate and the
Ah,
brand
okay.
Roundup. So it will come under another name. But there's over 500 brands that have glyphosate in them. Roundup is just the most popular.
500 different ones. So,
Yeah. But your
yeah.
alternative is would be diquat or paraquat, which are the two chemicals that were used in Agent Orange in the
Ooh,
Vietnam War. But they
yeah.
do known cellular damage, and I'm pretty sure you need a license. I've never used those. I'm pretty sure you need a license to use them, but they do known damage. And it's part of the reason why glyphosate got so popular because these ones were doing the damage, and everybody knew that. Um, and glyphosate disrupted the shikimate pathway, which we didn't have. So that took off. But there's a town just out of Ballarat called Dean, and they've had a mini cluster of Parkinson's and dementia, and they've scientists went in and researched and everything, and they've related it to diquat and paraquat. I think they grow a lot of potatoes or something there. Um, but the reason they would be using diquat and paraquat, I believe, is because they've maxed out their glyphosate usage and plants, as an evolutionary defense, they form a resistance to glyphosate. So the weeds are going to come back. they're going to quickly adapt and they're going to come back. So you either have to increase the rate of glyphosate, which apparently New Zealand is trying to do now. They're going from zero point 0.1 or zero point zero 0.01 milligrams. Sorry, it's zero point 0.1 milligrams per kilo per person per day in their food, and they're going to up that to 10 milligrams. So they're going 100-fold.
Wow. To
Yeah.
combat the weeds that are becoming resistant.
Well, yeah, yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, it would be for that reason. And so
Jeez.
the solution is such a band-aid fix, to
Yeah.
increase the way when what we should be doing is saying, right, we've got a real problem here, and the solution is regenerative agriculture. Now, the issue when you go from, and you'd need to speak to a lot more experienced broadacre farmer for this. But the issue is that in between period when you're in transition, because they have proved that doing regenerative agriculture, you can achieve the crops, the yields that you can do doing conventional as
Okay.
well. Your costs are going to go up a little bit, but the quality of your food is going to go up as well. But it's just such a difficult one. Um, but yeah, in that interim period, the government would need to support our farmers. And I really feel for them because it'd be scary and there's big change. One of the ladies, one person from that video that I put up on Instagram, she wrote to me saying, "Hi, I'm the wife of a farmer and my husband has cancer and my son has cancer. They're both
Oh,
working on the
jeez.
farm and I can't talk to them about the herbicides that they're spraying. I believe it was the herbicides, but I'm not allowed to talk to them about it." So they're both in the situation that I'm in, that they can't even have the conversation. But probably because the outcome, if they were to say, yes, this herbicide is causing our cancer, the change that they would need to make in their lives is massive. They'd probably have to, those guys in the situation that they're in, they probably have to stop farming.
Oh, wow.
But, we've got a lot of, well, I imagine because of what they're going through with cancer as well, whatever treatment or whatever they're doing. But, there's a huge amount of pressure from the whole system in Australia. Like we've gone from in the year 2000, 250,000 farms to now about 115,000 farms. So the farms are getting bigger and the equipment is getting better. Um, the technology is getting better, but and the margins are getting smaller. So to sell to Coles and Woolworths, you need bigger farms, bigger monocrops, higher yields, but smaller margins. So the farmer is under a huge amount of pressure as well
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
pull all this off. We need to respect the farmer so much more. They're the most important people on the planet. You need a good farmer 3 times a day. You need a
Yeah.
doctor every now and then, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. That's very true. Yeah. And I mean, do you find it a bit upside down that, I saw something where someone said, oh, if a bag of carrots is organic, it has it written on it. But if a bag of carrots is sprayed with a bunch of chemicals, it just says carrots.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it?
It is. I find that to be really odd that it's like, and especially with the story you were just talking about with that town with the potatoes. Now, those potatoes are ending up on someone's plate. Don't they have the right to know what the potatoes were sprayed with?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I copped a little bit of slack from a little bit of flack from people on that video because they're saying I'm a winemaker, I produce alcohol. And then somebody else said, "Oh, what about bacon and oh, what else was there? All these other things that are carcinogenic." And of course, alcohol is, but we announce that it's on the label and we're not hiding anything, and alcohol is your choice.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you opt in. Yeah.
Yeah, but glyphosate has been found in food and water and breast milk, and then in products like tampons and
Because
baby
of the
baby
cotton.
formula.
Oh, wow.
But
Geez.
it's on a level that is legal, or who knows? It's not really tested.
That's yeah, as defined by who? That's the problem, isn't it? I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, and then that can be a shifting margin with no accountability, as
that's right.
opposed to a small business makes a mistake. Accountability is waiting at the front door, but
Mhm.
a regulator shifts something and says, "Oh, we got that wrong." Well, he does his time, takes his pension, and leaves, and no one's accountable. And that is, I think, a big part of why these decisions get loosely made.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then, you try and do it quietly like New Zealand and just bump it up to 100 times the amount that is, so it'll
That's
keep people
madness.
up. But yeah.
And here's this picture of New Zealand as these beautiful green, pristine rolling hills and the freshest of the world's produce.
Mhm.
So you really the marketing department there is in stark contrast to the reality department.
Yeah, well, that's another thing that us consumers can do is normalize weeds. No, they're beneficial for that. They're Mother Nature's solution to a problem. They're like when you cut yourself, you get a scab,
Yep.
to help heal you up. When you spray glyphosate, weeds will come back. They're forming a scab over a wound that has been created on the earth. We need to
Yeah.
normalize that. We need to live with weeds out on the footpaths and things. And when you drive into a vineyard, we need to normalize leaves and canes and things being out of place. And that I know it's monoculture because the vines are all planted right there all together, but it needs to look rugged as it possibly can. We need growth under the vines. We need life throughout it. If we're going to indulge in monoculture, we need to do it as naturally as we possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's so much easier said than done, and it's a massive paradigm shift for us to change, and for us consumers even.
Well, and everyone goes on about the expense, and it's like, yeah, but we have to go back to basics because we can't the rates of cancer the age of average cancer is coming. People are younger and younger and younger. So there's
Mm.
one massive issue. The rates of cancer are just going through the roof. Australia is leading the charge. Once again, the country seen as so fresh and clean and uh, all of the good things, yet we're steamrolling ahead with high cancer rates, unexplainable cancer rates. The age groups are coming down, but then they're tooting the horn at saying, "Oh, well, early detection is so good now." But it's like, "Oh, hang on a minute, that doesn't mean
Yeah,
anything."
yeah.
Like look, we've got to look at the root cause. Let's stop waving the flags for distraction. Let's go to the root cause. And there's an obvious problem.
Mhm.
Maybe this is 10%, 50%, 60% of that problem, but there is a problem, and it's toxic exposure is clearly it.
Mhm. Yeah, all these rates have increased really since the 90s. So you've got to kind of look at what has changed um, culturally, I suppose, since then. And one of the massive ones is the use of glyphosate. That has been huge. And then there's other things like screens and blue light.
Yep,
That has been huge. And then processed foods, which also have a lot of glyphosate in them as
yep.
well. But yeah, for me, I don't know, it's a really hard one because a lot of people who suspect glyphosate of their cancer don't have a significant moment where that really leads them to
Yeah.
the
Yeah, because
cause.
it's not like a puncture wound that you go that caused this.
Yeah,
It's the dripping tap on the concrete that just wears away until there's a hole.
exactly. And also, which is really disturbing, is it's transgenerational. So it's being passed from in rat studies,
Oh, wow.
it's really terrible. The rat studies, the parent rats that are given the glyphosate are nowhere near as affected as what generation three is, which
Three.
yeah, generation three was much worse. But the studies done in rats early days with glyphosate was only 3 months, but a rat's life is 2 years. So these studies need to continue on and monitor what's really happening over time.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
rushed through because it's such a miracle bloody chemical. I think it's led to the unnatural growth of the world population as well.
because
You
it's
know,
just, yeah,
civilizations rise and fall with their ability to provide food to their people.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Like, because even animals, like a bird, won't have babies until it knows there's food and water and it's built a nest.
Yeah.
So it goes right back to that.
Yeah, or a kangaroo can, prolong its gestation period depending on whether it's got food or what available.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
elephants do the same thing. And fertility rates are on uh, um, declining as well. So maybe, maybe humans are picking up on the fact that we probably shouldn't be having kids right now.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Who
it's
knows? We've really lost touch. It's one thing that cancer did for me was make me realize just how much a part of the system we are,
yeah,
how much of an animal I really am. And part of my healing journey is to become more Paleolithic,
yeah,
I suppose, like track through evolution. What were we doing? I've been getting up with the sun and watching the sunrise in the mornings. And I've been trying, like I would not normally be doing this, or wearing some red lens sunnies to block out blue light in the evenings because it's so unnatural. As the sun goes down, you um, release melatonin, which will helps you to sleep. And your eyes are a clock. You're seeing the sun go down, and it's saying to your body, right, time to wind down. It's ready for bed. And then we flick on all the lights,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and you're confusing yourself biologically.
yeah,
Also, as the further you get down a cancer diagnosis, the kind of, I don't know, the weirder you get.
yeah. But I
The more
suppose
desperate you get, I suppose.
yeah, and that's rightfully so because obviously you're looking at every cause, every possibility, and every and even if it wasn't something that might have been involved for you, but you start becoming aware of how wrong things are,
Hmm.
globally, and our exposure to so many things,
Yeah.
especially, and like what you were talking about with wine and alcohol, that's an opt-in. You choose to have alcohol.
Yeah.
You know, you go to Coles or Woolies and you're getting a potato that's been doused in something that's giving the people in that area Parkinson's disease. Well, I didn't choose that potato. That's just what it said potatoes on the label. I made an assumption that it was okay, and that's not okay if that's what has become the norm.
Yeah. It definitely should be declared, but it's gonna need serious strategy to rid the world of this,
Yeah,
and, and a lot of compassion for the farmers who are doing their best to feed us.
yeah,
It just can't be. It'll get to a point, I think, where we've reached a collective level of suffering too much for us to really deny.
yeah,
And we're going to have to change. Unfortunately, the same as smoking, but smoking's an opt-in thing as well. Unfortunately, this is very slowly and insidiously doing what it's doing.
yeah.
And we're going to get to a point where there's just no denying, and we're going to have really deep regret. And then there's going to have to be a massive change.
The other frustrating thing is you will come up against, and I've come up against it in conversation with people talking about various carcinogenics or possible, probable, and the default line is, well, if it was that bad, everyone would get it.
Mm,
And that's their justification as to why I'm not worried, because if bacon was that bad or this was that bad, everyone would get it. It would be complete broad coverage. But
mm,
cancers don't work like that. They're very, they just find a weakness in the immune system, and it's repetitive exposure. It's not like it's you know I cut myself with a knife, and then you're going to cut yourself with the same knife. It's not that clean cut, and that's what can make it hard when you have people with that mindset that in their mind, my justification is if it was bad, everyone would have cancer.
mm. No, it's chronic, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
um, over time, constant toxicity, and then the body's inability to keep up. And then you have a moment of weakness. It seems like the perfect storm doesn't have to be so perfect
yeah,
anymore because
yes, yeah,
because our baseline of immunity has been lowered.
Exactly right. Yeah. Yep. That's true.
Concept of what it is to be human,
Yep.
because we're all, a lot of studies are done based on Australian diet, and they recommend we eat um, two fruit and three veg a day. And then you try and understand where that came from. What's that theory about? And then it's all based on the food pyramid. And then you try and understand where the food pyramid came from. And apparently it's from smoking companies who were getting prepared for when smoking was finally acknowledged that was causing lung cancer. Of course, they had financial plans. They knew that the industry was going to change a lot, so they needed to change tack, and they started buying food companies.
And didn't they invest heavily in a lot of the grains? That's why your carbohydrates became the dominant. They were saying, you need to have your cereals and your this and your that because they invested a lot in those sorts of foods.
Yeah, that's right, rather than fats and protein. And also,
Yeah.
carbohydrates are addictive. Like, I'm on a keto diet now, and I miss carbohydrates.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. So addictive. So you eat more, and then you start, then we're eating 3 times a day. So you're consuming more, you're purchasing more, we're just turning into the ultimate consumer, the ultimate spender.
Yeah. Yep. And all because you were led down a path of, well, blind trust. Why would the government not,
Yeah.
why would that organization say that? Why?
Mm.
And when you pick apart one and you start seeing, I often say to people when they're doubtful,
Mhm.
if you're presenting any sort of data and you say, well, this is a case of corruption, and you end up sounding like you're a conspiracy theorist that's gone crazy. But I often say to them, look, that's fine. Have in your own mind how many coincidences or facts you need before you believe it. If it's three, if it's 50, just have a number. Because at some point, some of these things can't be tarnished by that term. You actually have to look at it and say, okay, well, the evidence is in front of me. And I can't deny it now. And
Mm.
if you can do that, then I think a lot of other people will actually jump on and help push a movement.
For sure. Well, my turning point was cancer. You
So
know,
what
when
a savage way to do it.
yeah, I didn't need 50 points. I just got cancer. And then, before cancer, I was sort of innocently skipping through life, having a ball, not worrying about any of that sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
then when I had to face my mortality, then I started to think on a much deeper level about all this stuff. And I started to, I would definitely write people off for, um, being a bit of a hippie and not wearing sun cream or not doing this and not doing that and trying to avoid the chemicals. And I just didn't even think about it, or I just didn't engage, or I just wrote them off for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
now,
a lot of people do. And yeah,
and now I don't even want to feed strawberries to my kids. There's
yeah,
chemicals banned in the wine industry 15 years ago that they still use on strawberries.
really.
Harvest, yeah. Rovril is the chemical.
So they've banned it for one, but they're allowing it for the other because there's obviously some loophole where no one's actually ticked that box that says, okay, it's a blanket ban.
Yeah. But you look at our strawberries in the supermarket. Have you ever tried to grow strawberries?
Yeah, I have with the kids, and like they're normally very hard to grow and very small.
They're very hard and they don't look good and
Yep,
but they taste amazing. But
yep,
then you go to the supermarket and they're all, bloody millimeter perfect.
yes, yeah,
So it's just so unnatural. But that's on us consumers as well. We need to normalize average looking fruit and veg.
yeah,
Carrots don't grow like that. They split off and they go in all sorts of directions but you can taste the nutrient density in the stuff that you grow at home. Especially one of the biggest differences for me was growing cucumbers compared to
oh, oh,
supermarket cucumbers. You can just taste it. It's almost like a lolly.
wow. Because I
It's so
suppose the
much.
supermarket ones are quite watery and
Yeah, they
yeah,
do that in the wine industry as well. A little bit before harvest, you crank the water up so the grapes will increase in size because most people buy their grapes based on the weight,
right,
you know. And the
okay,
same, I'm sure the same thing would happen in a lot of industries. It'd be weight based. you
Like
know.
cows, well, like the
Yeah,
grain-fed cows. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. And speaking of, I know that there was a study done where they found residue of Roundup in the fat of grain-fed cows.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The grain would be full of it. The cows would get the worst quality food going around. And same thing for pet food as well. Much higher levels of glyphosate in pet food.
Oh, wow.
'Cause
And
they'll
that
be,
that would explain why. Because I've often thought, if an animal doesn't, why do animals get so much cancer when they live
Mm,
a stress-free life? But it's the exposure and the poor quality foods.
yeah, for sure. We've got a reserve out the back of our house, and the council come and mow it every now and then. There's some grass around, but underneath the trees where they can't get the mower, they just spray it. But we've been walking barefoot around out there, and then there's the creek that runs through,
So that washes down into the creek.
washes all, yeah, highly water soluble, and it takes up to 22 years to leave the soil as well.
Well, that was my next question is what's its life once it's in the soil? So you're looking at 20 plus years before it's gone.
Yep, and it will bioaccumulate, it will build up in the meristematic tissue of the plants as well, which is like the outer sheath of a plant. But it was originally, I should have said this at the start as well, it was originally used as an industrial pipe cleaner. So in the 60s, I can't remember the name of the company, but they used it to strip out corrosion and other things. A chelator binds to minerals or metal ions and will free them off the surface of whatever it or help dissolve them, I suppose. So it was used
Wow.
as a chelator, or it is a chelator used for industrial pipe cleaning. But then when you spray it on your soils, it will bind to zinc and iron, manganese, magnesium, cobalt, copper, all these things that we need, that the plants need themselves for pathogen resistance. And then we need as humans all these micronutrients.
And they're attached to it.
And so then we're unable to use them. They're either not there or they're bound up. So they're not freely bioavailable for us. So that's another death by a thousand cuts. But I don't know the size of that cut, that's probably
Yeah.
just all those little ones that add up.
Oh, geez. And, the emotional impact for you and your family, you've obviously that's going to be a terrible thing for you to go through, the whole family to have to now deal with. Is that just taking its toll on you, mentally and physically as well?
Um, oh, it's been the most incredible roller coaster of emotion. The initial the initial period, there was a lot of fear
Yeah.
and anger. Um, but I got a meditation coach. His name is Sam, and he helped me so much. Cancer kind of made me realize or helped me separate human concept from what it truly means to be human, which has been really exciting as well. And it kind of made me realize that I am perfect too. I was born perfect. I don't need to worry. I think another huge cut is psycho-emotional, why a lot of people are getting cancer. Because in our society, our culture, people are wanting to be something
Yeah.
other than what they are. They're wanting to move forward or progress and grow. It's so materialistic. Um,
There's so
so
much weight placed on that, and yeah, people let it define them, and they think, oh, I'm just this, but I want to be that, and it's like, well, you separate that. The job title really is such a small part of the package of the
yeah,
person.
it is. Oh, and it's nothing really.
Yeah.
For me, I wanted to be the best winemaker ever, and I wanted to grow Kangaroo Island as a wine region. I wanted people to know that place. So I was just constantly pushing myself, but I was always living in the future and never being present. And
Because you were,
cancer,
what's next? What's next?
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
just constantly pushing. And then cancer was like, hey, get back in your body. you belong right here now. The only thing that really truly exists is right now, and that's where you need to be. So ultimately, and I said before, it was a massive roller coaster, and I've had all the emotions. But really, cancer has been a gift for me in the end. I've still got it a bit in my lungs. Well, I'm dealing with that, and I feel the healthiest I've ever been in my life. But it
Wow,
has
man.
made
Okay.
me love life more than I ever have. But it's also made me realize that life is like we share, you and I, same thing. We share a life. There is my life and your life, but which are our own concepts, but there is one life that all of us on the whole planet we share. And whatever we do affects the people around us.
Yep. Yep. That's very true. Yeah, that's very true. And it's, I suppose, like you said before, a lot of people just blast through life oblivious to all those things that truly are important.
Yeah. And then eventually, when I got diagnosed, we knew there was a tumor there, but we didn't know the extent of the cancer. And it took 8 days to find out, to get the right scans and find out, if I had a chance at living. So really, I was on my deathbed for 8 days.
Oh, wow.
And eventually, and so that's traumatic. That was just pure fear and anger. I still remember yelling, fuck cancer
Yeah.
at the top of my lungs. And some people get stuck there. They don't take the responsibility for their own cancer. They don't. For me, it was massive to realize that I am the cancer. They're my cells. That's me, you know,
Yep.
and change my mentality around that. And once I had figured that out, then I was just pure love. Like even my road rage disappeared and bloody all anxiety left, and I just healed so perfectly.
Wow. Geez,
I
that's
think
really
I did do chemotherapy and radiotherapy, but I was just mentally, I was just in the zone for the whole thing.
And what's it look like now for you in terms of so you've gone keto, which is a known anti-cancer diet. So and I'm guessing that you've got a whole bunch of other steps in place that are just fueling your body to deal with what it has to deal with.
Yeah, I'm pretty much not drinking. I'll have a very small glass of wine every now and then, which is a little bit strange, but I think alcohol definitely contributed to my cancer before. Before I got diagnosed, I would have been drinking half a bottle to three-quarters of a bottle of wine a night,
Okay. Right.
which doesn't I wasn't getting drunk or anything.
No, but it's a constant exposure night after night.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for quite a long time. Um, but now I'm doing, yeah, keto diet. There's lots of little things that I do as well. But one of the bigger ones is I'm drinking low deuterium water. And deuterium is an isotope of hydrogen, and it's got an extra neutron attached to it, which makes it double the weight. But I've
Ah.
been massive focus on metabolic health, and at a cellular level, our cells they operate in lower deuterium water, and they produce lower deuterium water for our bodies to. Um, my science behind it is not great, but then produce ATP, which is the energy of what it takes to be human. So
Right.
when higher deuterium water gets into the cells, they can throw the little nanomotors inside the mitochondria out of balance. These little motors, there's 30 something thousand of them, and they spin at 9,000 revs per minute to produce ATP, so the energy of what is to be human. And when the higher levels of deuterium water get in there, it can throw them out of balance and inhibit that cell's ability to produce energy. So I learned
Wow.
all about that. And that was through my research to do with glyphosate. I started hearing this word deuterium. And then it also led me to Stephanie Seneff, who was one of the leading researchers on glyphosate in the world.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, it's really expensive and it's quite difficult, but I don't know. I really feel the healthiest I've ever been in my life, I think.
Wow. Geez. Okay. Well, that's good. That's a good spot to be in.
Yeah, but there's other thing, just going to bed at the right time, not going out partying, and uh, I'm only eating 2 meals a day. I'm less than 20 grams of carbs per day. I don't eat any processed foods. We bought half a cow, grass-fed, grass-finished cow, which is also um, well, toxin-free, and then also low deuterium in that. So, because if you think, I started thinking on this level where, how would a white boy living in Australia um, with a German and French background eat a mango ever?
Yeah.
At what point in my life, if planes and boats didn't exist, would I eat a mango? Or, any of these kind of fruits? I'd be eating meat and I'd be eating brassicas, like root vegetables.
Right. Okay.
That's what grows up there. So you would be eating locally and where you grew up, where your tribe was. You
Yep.
you inherit your mitochondria from your mother's side of the family as well. So I kind of went down that path. Where is my mum from? Her mum, and then I sort of sculpted my diet around
Its
my
origins.
my mitochondrial heritage, pretty
Wow.
much.
Okay. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Because if you look at fruit, it also gets rid of deuterium. So our body has a whole lot of mechanisms to lower deuterium before it gets to the cell. And fruit does the same thing. It will get rid of deuterium in the skins and the seeds. So if I eat a
Right.
mango, that's another tiny little cut, even though, fruit is fruit sugar, it's healthy, or it's seen as more healthy. You're meant to eat two fruit and three veg a day,
Yeah. Yeah.
sort of thing. But if all this human concept stuff didn't exist, then how would I ever eat a mango or a kiwi fruit or a bloody,
Yeah.
occasionally maybe I'd find an apple tree.
Yeah. And it'd be very seasonal. You wouldn't be on demand
Yeah,
all year.
exactly. Because then our relationships are another big thing that I'm doing is changing my relationship with the sun, which is another thing that has been demonized. And especially in Australia, I found out you hear stuff like 94% of people who get melanoma are vitamin D deficient, and then you
Yeah.
start thinking, well, what the hell's going on there? And I spoke to my oncologist about it, and he said, oh, it's due to high exposure to the sun when they were kids, is why they're getting cancer when they're older. But it just doesn't really make sense to me. And if you took away, housing, we'd be living in the bush
Yep.
or in caves, and we'd be up when the sun came up, and we'd be in bed when the sun went down, and we'd be out through the day, probably hunting and fishing and gathering through the mornings. And then when it got hotter, we'd be going into the shade or back into the cave for a bit. And then we'd
Yep.
probably come back out in the evening,
Yep.
and that would be a very healthy lifestyle. I suppose you'd be eating a little bit of sugar, probably mainly meat.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. But I remember there was a study done, I think again coming back, it might have been Dave Asprey when he had the bulletproof brand. I think he talked about it that if somewhere in one of the Scandinavian countries, I'm
Mhm.
sure it was up there, or it was somewhere where they don't have a lot of sun. It's typically overcast and cold. They've got a really high rate of skin cancer. And it goes in total contrast of what we're being told is the cause of skin cancer.
Yeah.
And the theories that they were having is it's the bad UVs from the light bulbs, constant exposure to all the bad UVs that the lighting throws out. Nothing to do with the sun. So it's just
Yeah,
so hard.
isn't it? Like, and why would you demonize the sun? It's because you can't sell it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but you can sell some toxic cream to rub over your skin for it.
But you're right. What you said before, though, then you start becoming a conspiracy theorist and freaking out. But
Yeah.
I'm freaking out because I got cancer.
Yep. But
So
it's just, I think, yeah, it comes back to that same thing where just in your own mind, decide how much evidence do I need? Is it 10 points, 50
yeah,
points, 3 points, whatever that number or is, if
Mhm.
you look hard enough and you often follow the money, you'll find the answer.
Yeah, you're right. Follow the money. If people want to listen to somebody talk about the sun and how our relationship should be with it, they should check out Jack Cruz. He's very Dr. Jack Cruz. He's very controversial
Okay.
and he's pretty he can be pretty full on, but he's probably the smartest doctor that I've ever listened to, and he explains the relationship with the sun that we really should be having and why, but it's just science. For the last 2 years, it's like a whole new language that I'm listening to, and you can probably tell that I don't articulate it very well.
Oh, I
But
think you do beautifully, but yeah,
oh, cheers. Well, but it's a whole new language that a lot of it, makes sense. But then yeah, to then repeat it or understand it even further,
yeah,
it is quite difficult. But it's been a
yeah.
really exciting, it's been a coping mechanism for me for my cancer, is to learn all this stuff and then try and employ these things in my life, the things that make sense for me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, look, I'm glad that you seem to be so centered and healthy and happy because you've gone through something so traumatic. So it's I feel happy for you that you've found a place of happiness, I guess, and you can just be.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, it's been a wild, wild journey. I really couldn't, I don't know, it's weird to say, but I couldn't imagine my life now without it. It's brought me so much love and positivity.
Like a new beginning, really,
It's
isn't it? Like you've
yeah,
started your life again
yeah,
with like the phrase "eyes wide open." You're really now in a position to take it all in, and
yeah,
which that's such a gift. And it's a shame that you had to go through something traumatic to get to that, but that's, I suppose, the learning curve.
yeah. And I really hope, but I do fear that collectively we need to reach that level of suffering
Yep. Well,
to
again, it comes down to a line in the
change.
sand, doesn't it? It comes down to a point where us as people or a government says, how bad, what percentage? When do we send the fire brigade in? Is
Yeah,
it for a little grass fire or is when there's a raging house on fire? Because we need to have that line in the sand. Otherwise, we're
yeah.
just going to go in circles and nothing's going to get done.
You're right. And just the other week there was a teenager diagnosed with bowel cancer,
Wow, really?
which is which is a normally a disease of an old man.
Yeah. That's traditionally how I always had remembered it.
Is that the line in the sand? Does somebody under 10 have to get bowel cancer? Because it's going to happen soon, or does it have to grow to 400% rather than 300%? Yeah. At what point do we say
Yeah.
what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the big key question, and that really has to be answered because
Mm.
it's a ticking time bomb.
And when we do that as well, though, I just want, because now I'm going out there and I'm chatting about it. I just want people to know how important our farmers are and how big a decision this will really be for them. So I think an important thing is to teach your kids where your food comes from and how hard it is to grow and to feed our population. If kids have a lot more respect for the food that they're eating and where
Yeah.
it comes from, I think that'll be something that, we can do at a consumer level.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Look, we eat too much and we waste too much.
Mm,
So we've probably got to get smarter across our consumption and our storage and the whole supply chain, everything.
yeah. Yeah, that's another thing that I have stopped doing is eating till I feel full. I'm never hungry and I'm never full on this keto diet. It's always sort of just balanced.
And are you dropping breakfast or are you having like an earlier dinner?
I've dropped lunch.
Oh, you drop lunch.
Yeah, but
Oh,
I'm
okay.
also having an earlier dinner. We've got kids. We eat around 6 o'clock
Okay.
anyway.
Right. So
Yeah.
then, and what time's breakfast?
Breakfast is normally I'll either have it about 10 o'clock
Okay.
or I'll have it first thing when I wake up
Yeah. So you've got that big gap.
in the middle. Yeah.
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 And then I'll
Yeah.
do a 3 to 5 day fast every 3 or 4 months, just as a bit of
Wow.
a reset. My plan is when I'm in remission, I am, or if you can ever be in remission, I don't really know that term people are using that term very much anymore because it's always there. It's there in all of us. It's just a matter of keeping it at bay and making sure your immune system is on point,
Yeah.
and especially in an increasingly toxic world. But for me, my plan eventually, because I can't drink this deuterium water forever, it's so expensive. And this diet is more, I would like to have slightly more carbs, definitely not what I had before. I won't eat processed food ever again, but um, it needs to be sustainable, for us to live. You still got to live. You don't want to be freaking out so much that you can't
Yeah. Yeah.
enjoy. So my plan is to do a 3 to 4 month sort of period in my year where I'm drinking the low deuterium water and I'm going hard on saunas and ice baths and exercising and doing all the things and making sure I'm and not drinking and sleeping right. And I'm going to take the ivermectin and fenbendazole, which everybody keeps talking about as well.
Yeah. Yep.
I've
Yep.
got on that. I've got on that as well.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's really good. Where is it that people that want to know more about you and more about this, have you got anywhere that you point them?
It's just Instagram, really. I'm going to bring out the response to that first video, the glyphosate video, was incredible. I definitely wasn't expecting that. But yeah,
Wow.
it went viral, and I've had hundreds and hundreds of messages. There were thousands of comments, and then I've just had hundreds of private messages from people who were so thankful and also telling me that glyphosate has caused their cancer as well. A lot of them, they say, I can't be sure, but I'm sure of it,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? So it's
No.
really difficult, but just raising the awareness. A lot of people said they'd never heard of it. Thank you for raising it. And then I think the change, like I said before, to do with the smoking company and now Bayer Monsanto, the argument is between the people and the government, or not an argument, but just a discussion and raising awareness about it and telling people that this is a really serious topic. Um, so yeah, it's just to keep raising awareness is my goal. So I'm going to put up a few more videos just to educate people around the history of glyphosate
Yeah.
and what it does with the shikimate pathway. And then I'm going to talk about the corruption as well, which will be an interesting one.
Yeah. Well, it's all there. It's not like you're digging things up. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it's true.
they've been in a lot of trouble and they've always managed to cover their tracks, but the point
Mm.
is that it's all there.
The weird thing is though, they say they, but who are they? I don't even know. Aren't they just normal people who work for a company who get paid? But maybe when they pull on the Bayer Monsanto jacket, then they feel like they've joined a
A team. Yeah.
team
Yeah.
because,
Well,
surely they've got kids and surely they've been affected by cancer. Do they all believe that their cancers have not been, or that this chemical has not contributed? I
well,
just don't
it's
understand who they are.
yeah, I know, and it's a worry, and it's that I think it was the Four Corners one where it said that when they first started raising the alarm bells, that certain people
Mhm.
resigned. Their own research team were resigning.
Really?
And it was like so when, and I always use that as a measuring stick. If you've got a journalist or you've got a scientist, or if you've got someone that says I quit because of, that's who
Mm.
you want to talk to.
Yeah.
That's where you want to go, and it was interesting that they said when it was something to do with the first bunch of papers were coming out and they then were getting their own research done and some people within the company were raising the alarm. It
Yeah.
fell on deaf ears and they couldn't stay there, they left. I mean, that tells you, people are walking away from what would be no doubt a high paying job in that industry because their morals got in the way. Well, that's the sort of person that you got to take notice of.
Yeah, definitely. That's where the truth lies.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and all those ghost writing studies that they did. I mean, then they said, "Oh, we're entitled to defend ourselves," but you're literally writing something and asking someone else to sign off on it in your favor. I mean,
Yeah, confirmation bias is a big one, isn't it? You've got to be really careful, like
yep,
where you and be really deliberate or not deliberate, depending on what the outcome is that you want. Because, for throughout my whole healing journey, I've pretty aggressively shut out any negativity, any stories around cancer where the person has not survived.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that this cancer is going to kill me either. It's just
Yeah.
something that I'm dealing with at the moment, and
Yeah.
I'm
Just like a
absolutely
health battle.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've got a friend, formed a little support network, and a friend of mine, Alana, she's stage 4 bowel cancer as well. And she's so positive. It's incredible. Her energy is just amazing, and she's doing such a good job. And it's not going to, she also says it's not going to kill her,
Yeah.
which
That's
is so,
important.
yeah. A lot of people say, stay positive, and it's very cliche, but it just does
Well,
wonders for you.
I think it does. I actually saw a video today of a study where they grabbed a bunch of 80 to 90-year-old people in homes
Mhm.
and they built a house that resembled 30 years ago. And they only played TV shows from 30 years ago. They had all the clothes from 30 years ago, and they put all these people in the home. And they said across every aspect, there was measurable improvements. Their eyesight got better, their hearing got better. Some of
They
them
probably
lost
live to
weight.
120.
And they said that this is proves how important your surroundings are.
Yeah.
So I thought that
And
was really interesting.
yeah, and to be conscious of that and then deliberately, manufacture your own algorithm.
Yeah, yeah, there's obviously something in it.
Yeah, my even and with social media, you see it like mine got way too cancery there for a while. There was too
Right.
much. It was very overwhelming. All this and this information overload stuff, especially when I started learning about the corruption, was very overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you learn about the corruption, and then you go and have to have an intravenous chemotherapy session
Based on what you've just learnt about.
based on what I've learned
Yeah,
why chemotherapy even exists.
yeah, I know. Yeah, the mind games, you'd be sitting there just chewing yourself up. You'd just be,
Yeah,
yeah, it'd be an awful feeling. And then, you get the fear put into you too, because you've got an establishment that is so skilled at telling you what they've been told. And that's what I've always found is that, a lot of these doctors are incredibly smart, but they're smart at remembering and reciting and understanding. They're not necessarily researching.
yeah.
And
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 that's the beauty these days is because we can go on Spotify and look up a researcher and listen to what they're at. You don't need 7,000 peer-reviewed papers to not smoke. You could listen to one person who tells you some really convincing studies about how smoking causes lung cancer, and you can say, right, I'm quitting tomorrow because of that one person with one paper. But
yeah,
we can hear them on a podcast.
yep, yeah.
And it's the same thing with that. I said to my bowel surgeon a little while ago, "Oh, have you heard about ivermectin and fenbendazole?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, I have." And I said, "Well, I'm thinking I'm going to start taking it. I've been researching it a lot, and it's all seeming really good." And he said, "Oh, I'll believe it. I'll believe it when I see I'll believe it when I see the research." But he doesn't have time. He's one of the top bowel surgeons in South Australia. He doesn't have time to research. So what I think he was really saying was when it goes mainstream, then
Then
I'll
I'll accept it. Exactly right. Yeah.
because also if he said to me, yeah, great, here you go, here's some ivermectin and fenbendazole, and things didn't go well, then his career's over.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, he's in a
But
hard spot.
he's in a hard spot, yeah. So he kind of has to do what the system is telling him to do.
Yeah.
And but also, oh, sorry, have you got time?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel bad holding you up, so I've got all the
No,
time in
not
the
at all.
world.
No, he said to me, because I did chemotherapy and then radiotherapy with the hopes that I wouldn't have to do surgery. But
Oh, right.
and I was his 100th patient that he's done this with, and he's had a 55% success rate where he hasn't had to do surgery. So that's
Oh,
45 surgeries that he hasn't had to do. And you really want to avoid surgery because normally they'll do surgery, then chemotherapy and radiotherapy. So you still go through all three of them.
oh, geez.
And I said to him, so why isn't, if you've had such a good success rate with this, then why isn't everybody doing it? And he said, oh, it's surgeons' egos.
Oh, they
Yeah,
like doing the
well,
surgery. Like,
yeah, well, you imagine going through medical school for 15 years and you're really excited about doing surgeries, then I guess you want to do surgeries. But also, in the wine industry, there's a whole ego thing, this person's better than this person and rah, rah. I imagine it's the same in the medical world where, the brain surgeons and the heart surgeons, they're like the kings and queens of the hospital.
Oh, okay. Then
And
there's the
then,
filters down.
the- yeah, the social hierarchy. And then, that person's done 2,000 surgeries. Oh, they've done their 2,000. I wonder if they even celebrate that 10,000 surgery, So the ego comes into play, which is also one of the things that cancer has um given me is such a different relationship with my ego, which has been
Right.
so beneficial.
Yeah.
It's not none of this is about me anymore. It's like, I don't know, I'm just so at peace with being who I am.
Yeah.
I
Geez,
need to,
that's
I don't need to be anything else.
yeah. You nothing to prove.
Nothing to prove to anybody. I just don't care what anybody thinks in the nicest possible way. I care about
Yeah.
people, of course, but I don't care. Like your opinion of me is none of my business.
Yeah. Yeah. And it
Um,
makes no difference. That's the thing, isn't it? Like when you start breaking that down, you go, well, that whatever that person thought, it didn't make a difference. It's not changing anything. So just
yeah,
move on.
that's
Yeah.
right. But it's so hard because then you get caught up in your head. But when you realize your thoughts are not real,
Yeah. Yeah.
life changes a
It's
lot as well.
it's almost like if you read a lot of or any of like the Stoic style of principles, the
No, I
philosophy of the
haven't.
Stoics. So well, basically what you're explaining and thinking is very similar to a lot of Stoic teachings where it's all about just letting things go and no having no attachment to things and
Yeah.
just basically you just be in the moment and as things come you deal with them and you drop them, you just move on. You're constantly moving on. You're never letting anything, nothing attaches to you.
Yeah.
um there's a really good, I'll send you the link if you like, a really good author called Donald Robinson who wrote about the Roman Stoics.
Okay.
And he basically all their teachings, what they were teaching. It's a great philosophy. It really is very, very similar to your mindset.
No,
So
I would
yeah,
love to check it out. One of
yeah.
the books that I read early on, and I still go back to all the time. The chapters are about 3 or 4 pages, but you could read them 100 times. Is a book called The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. Like a
I've heard of that book.
Oh, it's incredible. It's all really just a huge lesson in self-awareness and understanding that the only reality is that I am.
Yeah,
You're nothing else. You just are. You're existing. You can't be a doctor. You can't be a winemaker. They're things that you do, but you
yeah,
are simply a human on a biological level. Everything
yeah,
else is concept.
yeah. It's wow. Yeah, it's how much of a better place would it be if people just if you well now that you're aware of it, obviously you can bring your kids up with that mindset. So, so they get an option to have that at an early age. Um, but most people don't, you
Mm.
grow up with tension and chaos and needs and wants and it's just marching through life and then your kids follow that path because that's all they've seen. So you've sort of intercepted that course now and an opportunity for them to actually be like, well, hang on, before you go down that road, let's have a look over here.
Yeah, I wonder if people eventually, when they sit on their deathbed, do they realize that though? Because that's when it really all hit me, you know. I still remember sitting on the couch and eating yogurt out of a plastic tub, thinking, why the fuck is this in a plastic tub?
Yeah.
What is going on here,
Yeah. Yep.
It's realizations like that. But then just bloody everything that exists is all, it's so much just human concept. It's all made up that we
Yeah.
subscribe to. We're operating subconsciously so much of the time because we've all been indoctrinated from birth into what we practice.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. And even now the things you're exposed to as a with that mindset. I mean, like coming back to people who define themselves by their wealth or their job or
Mm.
whatever. And it's like you may not have given the time to someone who could have been one of the best people in the world you've met because he came across not of wealth or whatever it may be, like
Not wearing the right clothes for you to associate with.
yeah, yeah, I think there's something in that whole being able to put yourself in any environment and adapt and accept. Don't shoebox, don't be like, this is me and I only go to these restaurants or this. And it's like, no, just put yourself anywhere and adapt into that world for a second. And you can just experience things.
But to be able to do that, I think you really you need to love yourself. You need to, you sort of reflect all your feelings and your judgment. If I was, how do I put this? If you're not, if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to trust anybody else, sort of thing. If you don't love
Yeah.
yourself, it's going to be very hard to love somebody else.
Yeah.
Sort of project your feelings onto others, the world
Yeah.
around you, and it kind of shapes your world. And I think I lost it there for a little while, but I was brought up really well. My parents are amazing. My mum always taught us to love ourselves, but I think I got caught up in the wine industry and I lost that for a while.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I was because I was living in the future, I wanted to be something else and not satisfied. So then
Jeez.
my body sent me this message and said, "Hey, get back to
Yeah.
what you were before."
Jeez.
This is,
Man.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
My theory on it all. There's been
Yeah.
some deep thinking over the last 2 years.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine. And yeah. And look, obviously you've come out the other end of it better for it. So, you've got to take all those positives away. Your whole mindset's changed and
Hmm.
you've got to be so much, I suppose everyone around you too must be a lot happier.
Well, it's so different for a cancer patient compared to someone who's looking after a cancer patient. It's very different experiences. So it's been difficult for my wife and I. We're
Yeah.
on very different levels. Like she's done the worrying for both of us.
Yeah. Right.
I've been in fight or flight, I suppose.
Yep.
Um, so but we're in a really good place now. So in the long run, it's just a rocky adventure. Anybody who's had cancer or has had someone in the house with cancer, they would know that it's just a tough journey and you've always got to be prepared for curveballs and there's just really scary moments. My first intravenous chemo session, I went to sleep thinking, fuck, I hope I wake up,
Ah, shit.
you know. And then
Jeez.
and another night I woke up and my body temperature had dropped to 35 degrees and I was freezing. And my wife was sleeping in the kids' rooms because I'm toxic. So she went and slept in with the kids, and our daughter was still sleeping in our bed at the time. So Beck had to go in there, and I had um, our room to myself for 9 months because I was toxic. We were not meant to sleep in the same bed.
Oh, wow.
We had to separate our washing, and I had to use a different toilet, and I had to be careful.
Jeez.
Yeah, I had to be careful putting sun cream on the kids. I was nervous to kiss them in case I was toxic, and you know, it was just very scary at the start. They tell you all these different things. I couldn't go in the cold section of the supermarket. I was so sensitive to the cold. I couldn't even get eggs out of the fridge without wearing gloves or touch the milk or because I could feel the pain going through my hand. And I had to wear socks to go to the bathroom to wee in the night because the tiles were so cold. I could feel the cold coming up my feet and my calves.
Shit.
Yeah, and my hands peeled off 3 times, and the soles of my feet peeled off twice, like big chunks of skin coming off. And the taste is horrible, flat out headaches. I didn't have nausea, which was good because if you have to have these chemotherapy tablets that you got to wear gloves for and have them out of a little plastic tub. You're not allowed to touch them, but if you drop them on the floor, you have to do a chemical spill cleanup. and then you have to swallow them.
You swallowing it.
And I was thinking, what the fuck? Like, it is so counterintuitive. And I remember having my last tablets and I just bawled my eyes out with this new respect for my body and just devastation of what I've been doing to my body with those drugs. But then you're just full of fear. So, and the modern medical world is incredible. I can't like we're so lucky. I feel lucky. And some other advice to cancer patients is to pick your path and own your decisions. If you decide to do chemotherapy, that's what's going to save your life. You know,
Yeah.
don't hesitantly choose it and deeply regret it and remain in fear the whole time. I think the biggest key to healing from cancer is to release fear. You got to come out of fear first and foremost. So it's a mental game, the first part. Psychologically, if you can get yourself in the right place, then the other stuff is will flow. And if you choose chemo radio, there's so many complementary things that you can do to assist with that whole journey. And just
Right.
do all of them. If they're complementary, just go for it. Become a bloody biohacker,
Yeah.
weirdo cancer patient, going
Yeah.
barefoot and hugging the trees and all everything, you
You
know?
just do anything, wouldn't you? Well, yeah, you do as
Yeah.
much as you could.
Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
also nerve-wracking because I've started wearing red lens sunnies and I thought, should I wear them tonight? And I was like, nah, people might think I'm a weirdo. I thought I should just be bloody wearing them. But it's,
Yeah. Oh,
you
look,
know,
that's,
you
yeah,
still have those, I still have those thoughts.
those little bits of self-doubt.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
They still creep in.
Yeah. But I guess, it's like anything. If you aware of it and you're managing those little bits of self-doubt rather than being immersed in it,
Yeah,
that way you could just fine tuning. There'll always be a fine tune that you can do.
yeah,
Even the best instruments, music instruments are always getting fine tuned.
yeah. They need an oil up.
Yeah. So you just have to think of it like that. Well, mate, I can't thank you enough for your time and your story. Thoroughly enjoyed spending the time with you and hearing it. And I certainly wish you all the best. I hope that, I hope that what you're doing creates awareness and fuels that awareness. And even if it brings people in at a grassroots level and then they can start doing research and go elsewhere and then, the snowball begins. That's really what I hope happens. And that we see some sort of change, especially for the next generation, like you said.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's going to help to get the word out about glyphosate, I think, and really encourage people to do their own research too, but reach out. I've been learning a lot and I think eat organic, look after each other and educate our children. I think education is, we might not make changes in our lifetime, but those guys are gonna do it if we educate them the right way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And look after your farmers.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Yeah. Yeah. Especially the organic ones who are doing their best to,
Yeah,
to help us out.
pay them the extra money for the labor that they put in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, now you really can, it's been interesting doing that because hearing you talk about the effort and how much harder it is, that now I have an appreciation for why it costs 20,
No.
30% more. And you actually, in my mind now, I'm like, well, I'm happy to pay that because I can see what you're doing and I can see how hard it is and I appreciate it, the effort.
Yeah.
So that's been really good as well.
Yeah, one of those tomatoes will probably be worth five from those perfect tomatoes from Coles.
Well,
From a nutrient density point of view,
wow.
that's what you're
Yes.
paying for. If only we could measure that on the spot.
Yeah, yeah, that would change how everyone looked at things then, wouldn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Mm.
No, look, thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Well, thanks very much for having me.
Thanks for sticking to the end. As always, I'll do my best to leave links in the show notes for those interested in finding out more information about the guest and the topic. Head to bumpinginto.com.au to find out more information and more episodes. hopefully this kicks off the run of a few new episodes and we can get back into the groove and we get to speak again very soon. Thanks very much for stopping by.